Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Carrie Linklater, and I'm your chairperson today. And I am joined on the panel by Ed Sawatsky and Jerry Sneesby. Our city assessor today is Jonathan Spacek, and our administrative secretary is Kara Belshaw. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with your board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the other applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applicants have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. So good morning, everyone. Sorry, if I can just make sure everybody's got their cell phones turned off. Great.
Please state your name.
Jonathan Spacek.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Thank you. Will you swear in or affirm today?
You know what, I'll swear again.
Okay. Please state your name.
My name is Joe Aiello.
Do you swear the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Spacek, whenever you are ready.
All right, Madam Chair, I have a preliminary issue with this property. We are asking for non-compliance. So I will go through my evidence.
If I can help at all, I acknowledge that that the questionnaire wasn't
Yeah.
filed and responded to.
Okay, that's fine.
If that helps.
You want to proceed? with
Yeah,
your non-public portion?
Mr. Ayo isn't disagreeing. I will just, I'll save you from going over all the mailers I've shown as he's agreed. Just like to point out that the reason we ask for this information, and Mr. Ayo has an owner-occupied property, so we are not asking for his rental information in this case, but we do ask for the expense. It had never been filled out since I looked back the history of the building, so every year it was not filled out. It is just, I just want to say it's important for us to get that expense information from the owners so we can make it, whether it be expenses relating to building our actual expense model for income producing properties, or whether it be for the business assessment for our cost to occupy. It's important to see. Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out, and that's all I have for the non-compliance.
Okay, you don't want to...
If you would like me to, I'll point out.
Just notice on page 4 of your brief, for your request, it's only back to 2014.
It's it only prints out for the 2 years, but
Okay.
the important year here is 2015, the income year for our 2018-19 model for that income year. But I'll just show the starting on page 11. Is just the envelope we sent. 2668 Gordon, page 12. Again, signed in by Bonnie. Then I've included the actual expense mailer he sent, the certified one. So it was signed for receipt, not that it's disagreed on, but that's the evidence that I included. And then I went back, just showing the 2 cycles before that. I showed the June 6, 14 mailer sent. first 2012 mailer sent, just to show the history, and that's what I included as my evidence. And I asked for the same penalty for the 2018 appeal, and it was granted. I've included that board order. And that's on page 28. Or I didn't ask for it, Mr. Ruda did.
What was that gentleman's name?
Nicholas Ruda.
Ruda.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions of the assessor?
I don't.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
We're going to hear your presentation.
Hey, would you mind if I got a little bit of water first?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
So you have no questions at this time?
No, I have no questions. I don't disagree that the,
Okay, that's fine. We're just going to proceed with our...
I want to make a submission on.
Yes,
on-
and you will, but we have the opportunity to ask
Oh, I'm
questions.
sorry, yeah, sure.
Mr. Sawatsky.
So the specific information you requested, you've got listed here someplace. And none of the three items requested were ever filed.
No, like the history of this building, since we've asked for an income and expense mailer, we've never received one back. This is the first, 18 was the first year it's been appealed, I believe.
Is it a new building?
No, it was built in 1988.
Oh, okay. Change of ownership, is that?
No.
Okay. No further questions?
Mr. Sneesby.
Thank you. Did board not hear this a year ago on the same?
Yes.
Everything was,
Yes.
nothing's changed since?
Nothing's changed.
Okay, thanks.
And I have no questions. Actually, did you handle this file last time?
I handled the business assessment, so that's where you might remember me from if you were here for this one.
Okay.
But the realty was handled by Mr. Ruda.
Ruda, yes.
Okay. Thank you. If you'd like to proceed.
Thank you very much. There's several interesting points. The first one is that 28 years ago, my partner and I bought the building. We bought the building as 28-year-old individuals to run a business. And that's all we do there. We just run our own business there. We employ people, we run our business, and we foolishly, and please underline foolishly, assumed that the city would assess us fairly because there's no connection. There is zero connection between the form that an owner-occupier has to provide and the assessment. Now, I get what Mr. Spacek says, that the city requires it to create their model. I didn't know that before. I only learned that in the context of these hearings. I didn't even know a model existed. I don't even know how to access that model. And that makes this even more painful. But the interesting thing is, there's no connection between what we're doing wrong and what the city is assessing. The way we've been penalized is that we've had a grossly inflated assessment for years. And because we are profoundly uninformed when it comes to these matters, and because we were foolish, as I said earlier, we never appealed our assessments. We just went along. Then last year, they gave us an assessment of 1.7 million. And I came to that hearing representing myself, contrary to what they tell us in law school. He who has himself for a client has a fool for a lawyer. So I came to that hearing. I don't know how to access the model, because this is not the area of the law I practice in. I even trusted them at that hearing when they provided rents. So I went to that, and then when the board reduced it to 1.5, they were relying on numbers that I relied on because I relied on the city. Foolish. Since that time, we had a business assessment. The business assessment, I actually was able to get a hold of the rents. Lo and behold, I became informed. I got a hold of the actual rents, and our business assessment, we were successful. Penalized, because we still get penalized for a year. So now we've been penalized for our assessments for 20 years. We've been penalized for our business assessment. The business assessment was $60,000 over-assessed. So we have to pay a business tax on $60,000 more than our actual business tax. Now, if our total was like $1 million, what's 60 grand, right? That doesn't sound like a big number. But the difference is the actual number on our business assessment is the board found it, it's $95,000. They had assessed us at $155,000. Where is that fair? It's going back to feudal England. They can tax as much as they like as long as we don't say anything. And then when we come to say something, they suggest a penalty. I know at the opening comments, Madam Chairperson, you made the comment about we're not about comparables. I get that, okay? But we are about fairness. And so these comparables that I've put in, and I've also put in the rents, the comparables that I've put in are all the similar buildings within a 2-block radius of our building. And they range from from $995 to $1.3 million. We paid, and the 1.3 doesn't even compare to ours, it's so much superior. We paid tax last year on a $1.7 million assessment. $1.7 million. How is that remotely fair? So I'll tell you how they came up with that number. Did they use, even his brief today, and I think this fellow is a very fair young man. He tries to do his best. I suspect he copied the last brief. Even today's rents that he puts in, they're not, for the most part, they're none of the buildings I point to which are exactly like ours. They're none of the rents that I point to that are exactly like ours. He grabs, or it wasn't John, because I think John, Mr. Spacek, to a large extent relied on Mr. Ruda's brief. He uses 3 properties from Academy, 1 property that has absolutely nothing to do with ours. It's a very small building about the size of this room. And the last building, the most expensive building on Corden, that's one he uses. I've put in 6 similar buildings. All to say is we haven't filed that form that bears no connection to the assessment because we're owner occupied. So we haven't filed that form, but we've paid for that. We've paid for it by grossly excessive assessments for over 20 years. That's what I feel is unfortunate, which is what I said this morning. I'll accept responsibility for some of that. But at the end of the day, the city has an obligation. I'm very disappointed that the city would ask for the penalty today, having taxed us on a $1.7 million last year when virtually a superior building of similar size, in fact it's larger, has a 1.1 assessment. Why would the city come here today knowing they have money that doesn't belong to them? Because they've taxed us for 1.7, which is grossly excessive to anything in the area. Why would they come today and ask for a penalty? That betrays the duty of fairness that a government authority has to its citizens. I have no trouble with asking for a penalty if you assess it correctly. But don't come here. What prevents the city, if you condone this behavior? They've already grossly assessed us last year, 1.7. And in fact, the board has found that by reducing the tax because it's an income approach they use. And I use the board's findings in my assessment today. To come to my assessment, I use the board's findings on the rent. So even the board agrees with me that the rents that they use are grossly excessive. How can they justify 1.7? So I'll tell you, they can't. So what prevents the city in a society like ours to, okay, well, Aiello is too busy working and trying to employ people and look after his family and coach his kids in soccer. He didn't fill out a form. Let's assess his building at $10 million and then impose the penalty. They've valued our building at twice the going rate. Twice its true value. And they're asking you to penalize us. And they've already penalized us at twice the going rate. Now it's 60% more. Finally, I'll get to the legislation. The legislation assumes that you're penalized 1 act, 1 year. We haven't committed a second act. We failed to file in relation to the 2018, so the act that we committed was that we didn't file the questionnaire. We've already been penalized. The legislation provides for a 1-year penalty. Our failure to file that has already been penalized the 1 year. We got penalized last year. If you penalize us again, you're penalizing us excessively for a myriad of reasons, some of which I've alluded to, and more importantly, that would lead to an interpretation where in fact we're penalized for 2 years. The legislation allows us to be penalized for only 1. My final comment is that Mr. Ruda was here, and I made the submission at the last hearing when the board penalized us, and Mr. Spacek and I had a telephone conversation, and I told him about this. And I invited him, and he could listen to the tape. But Mr. Ruda represented to the board that owner-occupied must provide their rents because the rents are important. And the rents are something they take into account. Again, he who has himself for a lawyer is a fool. If you look at the form itself, it specifically tells you not to file rents if you're owner-occupied, that you do not have to file rents. So at the end of the day, even that information was disingenuous. We've been penalized once, that's what the legislation permits. I'm shocked that the city, after overtaxing us so grossly for over 20 years, I've provided what everybody else in our 2-block radius gets taxed, requests the penalty. And I ask the board, for a duty of fairness, do not impose the penalty. Someone has to stand up to a gross excessive taxing. And number 2, the legislation indicates a 1-year tax for failure to file the form, 1-year penalty. We've already received that penalty. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Spacek?
Just a couple questions. So 2018 was the first year you appealed this property,
Yes.
and you've owned it since 1988 when it was, or when
No,
did you start?
no, we haven't owned it since '88. We bought the building. We bought the building from the original owners.
Yeah. And is there, from my understanding, the reason you didn't ever send in the mailer in the past or appeal this property is because you didn't think the information would be useful for us? You just thought it was. I'd just like to understand.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Historically, frankly, I don't even recall receiving the questionnaires. We're trying to earn a living. We're not landowners. We practice law, and originally when my partner and I started, we were busy practicing law, working 14-hour days. I don't recall these forms. If my friend says they weren't filed, they weren't filed. I just assumed that the city would tax us fairly. The first time we woke up, and if you go back, you could probably go back 6 to 8 years, and even our assessment of 8 years ago is excessive compared to the assessments of similar buildings today. So we've been overpaying taxes for years. Now that's our own fault because we didn't appeal. I get that. But there has to come a point where you treat the owner-occupied building very differently than the investor who's got multiple buildings and is trying to hide their true rents. We're not trying to hide anything. We didn't file the form out of negligence, out of time, out of whatever, but ultimately the city shouldn't justify the city's grossly excessive assessments. That's, like I said, anyway, it's inappropriate at all levels.
So
As is requesting the penalty today, by the way.
And so when we requested the penalty in 2018,
Right.
for the second year. So because we run a 2-year cycle and you're appealing again in 2019, and it's the second year, which is a reassessment, so therefore you don't get the savings, which I understand you're saying, is the reason you're doing this because you disagree with the value the board gave it in 18, and now is that?
Well, here, I said at the beginning, and perhaps you didn't understand it, but I'll explain it. And you were at the business assessment. The business assessment calculates the rents and charges based on the rents. Those rents are what I use in my appeal today, the board's rents. You didn't appeal that. Presumably, you agree with it because you didn't appeal it. Those rents are far lower than the rents that the board came up with the last time. As I indicated, when I appealed the 2018 building assessment, the building value assessment, I wasn't aware, nor did I know how to access rents. Since that time, when I looked at the rents, I realized how even that assessment was inappropriate at 1.4. I've put in Cordon Avenue rents within a 2-block radius. You've used 1, 2, 3 Academy rents. When Cordon is full of buildings exactly like ours, there's 3 across the street. There's 1 a block down. Why aren't those rents used? 611 Cordon has the same square footage, only all their square footage is above ground. Why didn't you use their rents? Their average rent's $11.91. It's absolutely profoundly unfair. That's not what the city's supposed to do. The city's supposed to use comparative rents. And you can't rely on the fact that we were too busy to send in a form. There's ways to penalize people for that.
That's all my questions regarding non-compliance.
Thank you. Mr. Swansky?
Well, you had the experience last year,
Yes?
so why did you not provide the
We did.
information this year?
We did. We have provided the information.
You have.
Oh, yes. See, and this is what's profoundly wrong with the position Mr. Spacek is taking. We were penalized once already. It's the same form he's referring to. We didn't get a second request, and I'm glad you asked that question, sir, because what happens is and I'm sure Mr. Spacek will clarify this, but in 2016 we were asked for a form. We didn't provide it. We were penalized for that already. It's the same penalty he's trying to impose again for that same form.
So you provided the information, but late. Is that the ideal? Was that the circumstance?
What they do is they request the information every 2 years.
By a certain date? Yeah.
Yes, okay? So let's use 2016 and 2018. The 2016 assessment is the one that relates to this. It also relates to last year's taxes. We didn't file the 2016, so we were penalized last year for that. He wants to penalize us again. So he wants to penalize us twice for the same act. We've already been penalized for failing to file that form. No new form is requested for this assessment. It's still the same form. So because we've already been penalized, I'm saying, why penalize us again? The legislation reads that you can penalize for 1 year. And we've been penalized at 1 year. This would require us to be penalized 2 years in a row for failing to file the same form.
But isn't there a requirement to file the form?
No, it's every 2 years. The
We ask for
form,
it every year.
what, pardon me?
The income and expense mailer, we
Yeah.
send it out every year. The second year is the most important one, sorry to interrupt.
Well, the 2017 is not in your book. We never, no, because you didn't,
Yeah, it's post-reference.
it's because you didn't send out. We've responded, he's relying on our failure to file the 2016, for which we've already been penalized last year. 2017 and 18, I believe we filed.
2000, so if I can speak.
But
I'll
those
try to
aren't,
clarify.
pardon me?
I'll just try to clarify.
Sure.
2017 mailer is the most recent one we sent out this past May for the 17 income year, the year before. Mr. Idaho, after going through this experience, I imagine he sent it in, it was accepted.
Yes.
That's for the next cycle, so
Right.
2020 reassessment, we're gonna use those 2016 numbers.
Right.
2017 numbers for the
Yeah.
income year 17. So, but again, this is going backward, this is the 2019 assessment, reference date of April 1st, 2016,
Right.
which uses that one income year that he didn't send in and all the, so that's why we're, again, 2019 appeal, we're asking for the penalty, we have to, it's not, it's just the way it is, but 2020, again, it's been sent in, I'll have that noted.
But just to clarify, our failure to file the 2016 has already resulted in a penalty for us, and I believe Jonathan will confirm that.
Absolutely, the way a 2-year cycle works now in the legislation is
Right.
the
So-
penalty's been granted, 2018, that was the penalized year, he did not get the reduction. He would be getting the reduction this year right now, and if it's not granted, he still gets the reduction, or whatever happens today, it's granted, but if non-compliance is granted again, he's penalized twice, that's the way it works, that's the way the system is at the moment.
Well, I disagree as to that interpretation of the legislation. You don't penalize someone twice for the same act, particularly particular, look, you have, you can decide at the end of the day. I'm here, we've had to pay tax on 1.7 when every similar building's 1 million. We've already been penalized on that. So for failing to file a form that has
Sorry.
nothing to do with that assessment.
Mr. Aiello, sorry, we're asking questions right now.
Sorry,
You
yeah.
can just,
Okay.
Mr. Swanson?
Did you have any evidence with regards to other sales in your neighborhood relative to your property? As opposed to, you know, comparing assessments? How about sales information? Have you
Well,
had any?
623, which is on my list and is attached, recently sold for the exact sale. It was listed at 1.2 and it sold, and it's a comparable in our area. $500,000 less than what we paid for tax on it last year.
So you do have some sales evidence?
Yeah, it's not in my brief. I didn't put it in, but I should have put it in. Remember what I said about a fool? But the point really is, at the end of the day, the point really is, how can we tolerate this kind of gross assessment?
I've got no
Okay,
further questions.
No, Mr. Sneesby. Questions?
No.
Okay, and I have no questions.
Thank you very much.
So we're just gonna take a quick recess?
Yes, we'll leave the room.
Oh, you'll leave it.
Yeah.
We'll leave the room, yeah.
resume the hearing. And we are going to grant the non-co-op.
I don't think there's any point to going ahead, given that you've granted that. I'll just have to visit the municipal board. Because whatever decision you make today won't apply. They're gonna reassess us for next year. So you've penalized us 2 years in a row for excessive assessments. Whatever decision you make today will have no bearing.
You can certainly proceed with your brief if you wish. It's up to you.
Yeah. Here's I'll be very brief. There's three ways you measure the value of a building. One is a cost approach. This is an old building, you don't cost approach. Number two is income approach.
Sorry, if I can just say, we have not done anything specifically as the board.
I agree.
This is with.
No, I totally agree.
Something you'd like to address,
Yeah.
Mr. Spatchik.
Number two is the income approach. Number three is the comparables. You've said at the outset that you don't look at comparables, but the comparables will give you a different indication. They won't only give you what the assessment is. The assessments are based on the rents. So that means that the overall rent on the comparables has to be lower than this presumed rent that Jonathan put in. So let me take you through the comparable rents, which were accepted by the board and not appealed by the city. So the numbers I used for the income approach were, and if you go to page 8, there's a couple of mistakes that the city has made. It's consistent with everything they do.
Is this tab 8?
Page 8 of my brief.
Oh,
Okay. So what the city has done, and Jonathan, or Mr. Spacek, sorry, indicated that he would have amended this, but hasn't, so maybe he'll amend it in his speech. He's taken 8,700 square feet as our leasable space. Our leasable space is not 8,700 square feet. The board already accepted this at the last revision. I measured the space. Our space has stairwells. It has a vestibule, and it has different hallways, which are commonly referred to as common areas. If you look at tab A of my brief, that's a picture of the vestibule. Okay. If you look at tab B, that's the front stairwell. If you look at tab C, so that's the rear stairwell. Those are spaces that those are taken into my friend's calculation, and I'm prepared to rent them to the city, as I told him at the break, but no one would rent that space. It's absolutely absurd to suggest that we should pay $13, that anyone would pay $13.83 a square foot for that space, which is what is in my friend's calculation. Moreover,
Mr. Aiello, you understand though that all buildings are assessed in the same way in terms of the square footage.
they're not. I profoundly disagree with you. Common area expenses, common areas, and Jonathan can confirm this, common areas are not taken into account in the context of rentable space when you're looking at, what they look at, non-owner occupied buildings, they look at the leases. The leases don't, if the city were leasing this building, they don't pay a square footage rate for the hallway. That's a common area. They pay a square footage rate for what's in here. Jonathan, do you disagree with that fundamental principle?
No, I agree.
Okay, so, and the board agreed with me the last time I appeared, and Jonathan agrees because it's accurate. Stairwells aren't taken into account in your square footage of rentable square footage. Vestibules aren't. The calculation the city used last year, and perhaps inadvertently, because I believe that Jonathan's a very fair young man. I said that before the hearing, I say it again. I think he may have done it inadvertently at this time, but he's used 8,700 again. But at the board hearing, it was accepted, the 8,100 that I put forward. I measured it myself. In fact, I had a...
So, sorry if I can just stop you here.
Sure.
Are you taking this into consideration then,
I-
Mr. Spatchik?
I'm taking everything he says into consideration. I review every property we look at, but what I'm defending today and had you know, we've gone through with the
Right.
realty. I'm defending the 2018 border revision
Right,
agreement. I'm respecting what they've done. Whether, the way I worked it up in my brief is, it works out to $13 a square foot at 8,700 square feet. If you wanna use 8,100 square feet and use it at a higher rate, again, which Mr. I would disagree with, but we're gonna review this, like, I'm gonna review this property when I go back for square footage. It's an owner-occupied building that never had never sent in a mailer, no reason to review, but there's a, you know, it goes both ways with a single tenant owner-occupied building. There are cases where whole building is used, all square footage, owner occupied. We don't know what they're not using, we don't know if, you know, but a leased out building, we have the lease, we know what they're using, so there is a difference, and I agree, but this property will be reviewed. If the $8,100 square feet is right, that's what we'll use. We're not against using the proper square footage, but again, I don't know how the board determined that final 1.448. It says in the brief that they just changed the NOI.
right.
So, to me, that shows they used the 8,700 square feet at a lower rent, which works out to 1,301. I'm just saying, that's what I'm defending. I'm taking into account what had already been transpired at the last hearing, and then we'll go from there.
At the income calculation where they do the expense taxes, the board accepted the 8,100. They accepted the 8,100 square
I think
feet.
we're a little different. I think we're disagreeing on the realty. I'm using the realty decision from 2018.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Aya was talking about the BA,
That's
which
right.
has none of the substance that the realty hearing has. It's a completely
Right.
different role, and
Right.
it's the owner occupied. I think we all know that. So,
Okay.
but I didn't use the BA hearing.
Anyway,
if
the
that
point
makes sense.
is that you don't use common areas.
Okay.
You can't lease the common areas, and they add up to about 600 square feet.
Okay, did you want to present your brief? Did you want to present your sales evidence?
I'm getting
Sorry,
to
I would
that.
just like to proceed.
I am. The first
Okay.
mistake they've made is they've got the wrong square footage. So that's the mistake I'm referring to. And the reason they have the wrong square footage is because they're using common areas, and Mr. Spacek agreed that they shouldn't use common areas. So that's the first mistake they made. And the second mistake that their brief makes is they use $13 a square foot for the entire building. Ours is a 2-story building with a basement. And so I've put in the pictures of our basement. To suggest it's $13 a square foot for the basement is, it's at tab 8, the pictures of our basement. We tried to rent that basement out for years. We couldn't rent it out. Okay, the building across the street has sat vacant for 4 years. So I put in pictures, and what I did, which is different than the city's brief, is I put in all the pictures. So I put in the pictures, yeah, we set up a boardroom down there, that's in about 1/6 of the basement space, and I put 2 pictures in to show the boardroom. Then I showed what the rest of the basement, because the ceilings are substandard, they're about 2 feet lower than this. So we generally use, if you look at the pictures, and I put in the picture of a gym that we have in there, I put in all the pictures, but we generally use the basement for storage. Nobody pays $13 a square foot for storage, $13.83. Interestingly and coincidentally, the photos that the city's brief has are only of the nice pictures, the boardroom. They don't have any of the pictures of the storage. They put in the picture of the boardroom, the kitchen, it's misleading. So there's no way that our basement would attract that. So the first mistake is the 8,100 square feet. It's 8,100, not 8,700. The second mistake is that 2,800 is a basement, and the board has accepted this argument before. So if you go to page 8, the potential rent should actually be for 5,300 square feet above ground and 2,800 square feet below ground. So what I did is, unlike my friend's brief, I went in and looked at all the Corden rents. So 698 Corden is the first comparable I used. It's a much bigger, much more elaborate building. And if you just want to have a look at it, it's at tab 4. It's over 10,000 square feet. It has a beautiful lobby. It's got great windows all the way around. It's not a little building like ours. It's at tab 4, a picture of the building. And so their rent, they have a 5,600, and my friend uses this one too, 5,600 square feet, which is roughly the same as what our area is above ground, and it's $12 a square foot, okay? It has additional leases, 1,100 square feet, $10 a square foot. Yet, my friend's assessment uses over 13. Now, since I looked at these numbers, I'm told, and it's in my friend's brief, that a new lease has been signed at that building, but it's a 10-year lease, and it's at $15. It seems to be a bit of an outlier, and maybe it's that high because it's hedging against inflation. 611 Corden, page 9 of my brief. 611 Corden is one block east of our building. It is 8,700 square feet above ground. Its average rent is $11.91. It doesn't rent out the basement. $11.91. It's built the same year. I've got a picture of it at, where is the photo of that nice building? I think it's at tab 6. If you look at tab 6, if you go to tab 6, you'll see a photo of that building. Again, a much nicer, more elaborate building than ours. Its average rent is $11.91. Its assessment, by the way, is $1.1 million. And we paid tax last year on $1.7 million. A superior building at $1.1 million. Then 897 Corden, 2 blocks west. 2,600 square feet, $10 a square foot. 4,100 square feet, $8 a square foot. 725 Corden, half a block east. 2,300 square feet, $12 a square foot. 1,100 square feet, $10.78 a square foot. 500 square feet, $10.70 a square foot. The board, I submitted in my brief that the basement should have a rent of $5.50. The board last time on our business expense concluded it was $8. I'm prepared to live with the $8. If you go to page 11, we go to the cap rate, the capitalization rate. My friend uses a 6.5% cap rate. 6.5 is an aggressive, is the most aggressive rate. And in fact, some A buildings in Winnipeg, they use 6.5. Ours is neither an A nor a B building. Our square footage is too small. We have no elevator. A third of our building is below ground. We have no parking. It's neither an A or a B building. And for the 611 Corden, again, very similar, much better building. The cap rate the board used for 611 was 7.25. And I believe 7.25 is fair for our cap rate. That CBRE says that A buildings, suburban A buildings range from 6.5 to 7. My friend used 6.5. Suburban B buildings range from 7 to 7.5. My friend used 6.5. Colliers says doesn't differentiate between A and B, but includes all of them in the same, and they range from 6.5 to 7.25. My friend used 6.5, the most aggressive rate that would apply to a number of A buildings. The board used 7.25 for 611. 7.25 is appropriate. When you plug in the numbers that I have at page 11, the capitalized value is $965,056.82. Now I know that you don't use comparatives, but that is one of the other ways to value the buildings. And if you look at all the comparative buildings, and I put the pictures, some of these buildings are virtual replicas of our building, and most of them are superior. 611 Corden, which I've already shown you the picture, superior building, 1.1. 623 Corden, virtually identical building, 1 million. 691 Corden, much larger land area, virtually identical building, 995. 701 Corden, much newer building, much larger building, 1 million. 709 Corden, similar building, similar status with the basement and what's above, 1 million. 725 Corden, much larger, superior commercial building, 1 million. And then 740, which is a strip mall, and it's got all kinds of parking, much more superior building, 1.2 million. So what I've done, I didn't go and look at Academy, or I didn't go and look at at Roslyn or anything. I took every building that was similar within a 2-block radius, and we're grossly over-assessed. Now, I get why you don't do direct comparison. I understand that. But in order to come to this assessment for those buildings which are virtually identical to ours, their rents, which is the income approach that the board, their rents can't be anywhere near $13 a square foot, or their assessment would be 1.4 or above, just the way ours is. So all I say is that the appropriate assessment would be keeping consistent with what's in the neighborhood, and keeping consistent with similar buildings ought to be the amount that I've submitted. There's a couple of mistakes in my friend's brief that I'm going to emphasize, and then I have nothing further to say. The first thing, I remind you that he uses 8,700 square feet, when we're in fact 8,100 square feet. The second thing is he only uses one building on Corden to compare in this brief. Off the record, I'm told there's other things they look at. They elude me, but in this brief, he's got one building, 698 Corden. That's the superior building, and the majority of the lease is at $12 a square foot. 5,600 doesn't justify his 13. The others are on Academy, which don't apply at all, nor are they similar buildings. The 710 Corden that he uses as well is a single tenant, 1-floor building, which $20 a square foot is completely inconsistent with the rents I've shown you for the buildings that are either directly across the street from us or within a 1-block radius. And then the last thing he does is he uses a 6.5 cap rate, which is for A buildings, and ours is not a B building, let alone an A building. That's my submission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do you have any questions,
I have
Mr.
no
Spatch?
questions.
Mr. Sawatsky?
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Sneesby?
Just to confirm, Mr. Ayala, you're requesting $965,000 as it's shown, I guess, on page 12, is that?
Yes, and that number is largely based on the rents that were accepted. In fact, the number is directly based because this is an income approach. So the income approach largely rests on the rents. And these were the rents that were accepted by the board at the business assessment. Of course, we're penalized there too, and we were assessed at $156,000. And the board reduced it to the 99 less the expenses, which comes out to 85,845. And these are the board's numbers.
It seems you're using also the comparison to substantiate the income approach?
Yes, I've used that. What I've done is I've shown leases from 698 Corden, 611 Corden, 897 Corden, and 725 Corden. Those are the ones I've used, and they all justify the rents that I'm putting forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I have no questions. Mr. Spalchuk, do you want to proceed?
Thank you. I'll just go quickly. I believe Mr. Ayo gave a good overrun of his building. We're looking at roll number 12022108000 for the roll year 2019. I'm defending the value that was determined at the 2018 realty hearing. So it was originally around 1.7. We're defending the 1,448,000. This is a building built in 1988, 2 stories above grade, 1 below. Again, we're using the gross floor area as the leasable square area for this owner-occupied building of 8,736. Page 2, you can see where it is. We've already run over the building. Page 3, I've included some outside buildings. I would just like to point out, looking at the front of this building on my page 3, it is a basement, I won't disagree, but it does have steps down and a door to the basement, so it is more of it's a much nicer basement than standard basement where you have to go in from the stairs inside and, you have the small windows up top. These have full windows in the basement. I wouldn't consider it an average office basement in mass. Just want to point that out. Page 4 just shows a request for information we had not received in the past. There's no sales or subject leases on this property. Page 5 is the workup I am using to get to that border revision value that was determined in 2018. I use the 1.448 and I match that NOI, and the way using all the standard parameters that they kept the same with the 6.5 cap is a rent of $13.02. So that's how we come up to that 1.448 million. and that's what the board determined last time. Page 6 is the list of the same list of comparables that were used in 2018, and since they were partially relied upon, I used them again. Rents were taken from in the most immediate area, and we're using actual reported net leases. So we, for example, my first comp, 520 Academy, built in 1987, so it's 5 years more recent than our subject building. Started the lease in 2008, which is about 10 years old, and it's 2,300 square feet at $21. So that's on the high end of our range for an Academy rent. And then I believe Mr. Iao used the 698 Cordon rent, which is my comps 3 and 4. These are much more comparable in my eyes, a very comparable building, very close to the subject property, and I've included comp 3, which is 205, so that's second floor rent of office building. A lease started in 2014, so 2 years before our reference date, and it's a 5-year lease for 5,000 square feet, so we're in that range of square footage near the subject property, and it's at $12. So second floor at $12, which is very comparable in my eyes, and then comparable for 698 Cordon, Suite 102. So that's main floor space on Cordon, very close, actual net lease, signed in 2012. So it's 4 years older. Could be argued market appreciated. To April 1st, 2016, but we have a 10-year lease for 3,687 square feet signed at $15. So the board decided on $13 last time. I don't think it's an unrealistic rent. Again, might be a different blended rate if you lowered a little bit for the basement, had a little lower for the second floor. There's, but we're within the range is what I'm here to say today. It's not, I don't believe that $13 is an outrageous rent at all for an office building built in 1982 on Cordon. Again, I threw in some Academy ones, but the most comparable to me is that 698 Cordon. I just wanted to point it out. I've included pictures. You've seen it from Mr. Iao's, but comparable 3 on page 8 is that 698 Cordon I'm talking about. It's a multi-tenant building, nicer on the outside. It's better looking, larger in overall size, right? But I'm just using net leases per space in there. Like I don't have rents for every space in there. Page 9. Mr. Iao spoke about the cap rate. I would just like to point out we are at 6.5% for this building based on when it was built, the size of it, and it being an OFS, which is our standard 3-story or less office buildings in the city. All of for the 2018 cycle, using a reference date of April 1st, 2016, all of our cap rates for these range between 5.25 and 8.5. If we took the 20th percentile out of the lowest and highest cap rates, we're at ones between 5.5 and 6.75. So this one's at 6.5, which is right in the middle of our cap rates for OFSs for this period. Colliers for the Suburban B, which I'll consider pretty similar, is ranging between 6.5 and 7.25. So we're on the low end of that at 6.5. And then CBRE has Suburban A or NB between 6.5 or 7 and 7 and 7.5. So we're on the low end of that, absolutely, just for some comparisons for that cycle. I just have some non-compliance evidence in here, and I've just included, Mr. Iao, you've seen pictures from him, but the ones we have from an inspection, I just included the inspection pictures, basement on page 25, main floor on 26, second floor 27, and then 28 forward is just the actual board decision from 2018 I included. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thatcher. Do you have any questions?
I do.
On the evidence that he's just
Yeah, I
provided
do.
us?
Yeah, I have some questions. Tab 6 of my brief is a picture of 691, it's a picture of 611 Cordon. You see that building?
Yes.
That was built the same year as our building.
Yep.
The overall rents are $11.91. Why didn't you use those rents?
If I had a net lease there, I would happily include $11.91 as within the range. I don't see, I'm not trying to hide any of these.
No, but you don't disagree that that's a representative building?
If it's a net, it could be comparable if there is a net lease sent in, and
Yeah.
it's a net lease they're paying, absolutely, that's,
I'm gonna
not.
go to tab 5 of my brief. Tab 5 of my brief was you see it's actually the appeal that was filed on that building.
Yep.
It was the appeal that was filed on that building. All the net leases were put in the brief. The submission was that $11.91 should be used as the average rent because actually a lot of the building was vacant. The submission was that it was 7.25% was the proper cap rate. which would have resulted in a value of 1.177. Do you see that?
And that's the decision after that hearing?
And then the decision is attached after that hearing. The board accepted all that evidence.
Absolutely.
And so that evidence was available to you, but none of that evidence is used in the context of this hearing, correct?
I did not have this building's net rent in my comparables, no.
No.
But
And
if it was a net lease reported to the city, it's used in our model.
so if you look at tab 6 of that shows the building, it's much more superior, that's a superior building to our building, would you agree?
You could argue it's superior, sure.
Yeah. I could argue and you could accept. You accept that superior.
I don't know all the facts about the building.
Well, you know enough about the two buildings to say
Built
is that
the
a
same
superior?
year.
Pardon me? Built the same year. They have 8,700 above grade. We have 54. Would you say it's a superior building?
You could argue it's a superior building, I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Come on, you know more than that. You do this for a
Just
living.
Yeah, just I don't know every
Sorry, he's answered
building.
the question.
Tab 7. You see tab 7?
Absolutely.
I've used that, the rents at that building as a comparable. That's directly across the street from ours. You see that?
Yes, I see it.
Yeah, and that building has a much nicer basement access than ours. You see that?
I see a railing where you walk down to a basement very
Yeah.
similar to yours. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like a much different basement walk down.
Now, none of the rents from that building were used, correct?
If I did not have any net leases.
Yeah.
Again, it's all taken into account. I'm just saying, I'm using the same 6 that were used at the 18 hearing, and I pointed out the 2 that were the most comparable. I don't
Fair.
disagree that there are other rents on Corden, and we have to use them.
Yeah, and if you look at the rents on that particular building, they're all below $13 a square foot, as I've submitted in my brief.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Now, I know that you won't agree, but one would argue that building's larger than ours, but would you agree that it's a superior building?
Depending on the use, multi-tenant, it's more suited for a multi-tenant, for an investor owner,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, okay, well, good, that's fair. We're good. Now, if you look at,
Mr. Aiello,
yeah,
sorry, we're not looking at your brief. These
Thank
are
you.
questions in regards to what Mr. Spacek presented in his brief. So if you have questions of what he presented, ask them. And if not, you have gone through your brief, and if I may say, you have taken an extraordinary amount of time this morning, and there are other applicants waiting to be heard.
I'm sorry to have wasted your time, Madam Chairperson.
I did not state
I,
that.
that's not my intent. My questions were related to his brief specifically because none of these properties were used in his brief. But I understand what you're saying and I hear you. I won't bother him with any more questions.
Mr. Sawatsky, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
I have no questions.
Pardon? Oh, thank you. Sorry.
And I have no questions. Thank you. And that concludes this hearing.
Thank you, good morning. Thank you for your patience.
See you, Joe.
Good morning. Board member.
Good morning.
Good night.
We're just going to take a 2-minute recess. Yeah. And I'd like to bring this hearing back to order. And I understand this is a non-co-op?
Yes,
Mr.
you have
Spatcher?
a preliminary issue. If everyone could please turn to, I will find the page.
We're dealing with 286 Smith.
Oh,
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Too
you have
late.
to swear. Don't throw them.
We're all
So sorry. Will you affirm or swear in
I'll
today?
affirm.
Okay, please state your name.
Louis Alco.
And do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Are you going to speak as well?
I might as well have Laurie sworn.
Okay, I'll just swear you in as well then. Or do you want to swear or affirm?
No, I'll swear.
Please state your name.
Lori Sokoloff.
Do you swear the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go on.
No.
The roll number
Yeah.
for this property is 120933181100. This is for roll year 2019. We're looking at 286 Smith Street. Again, this is regarding the non-compliance of the mailer we never received for the 2015 income year. If you turn to my page 12, I just put a copy of the certified mail we sent. It's sent June 3rd, 2016. If you look at the top right of it, there's a tracking number. It ends with 404 CA. You turn to page 13, the same tracking number was signed for and delivered to a Capitalization. And then I've just included the certified mailer dated June 3rd, 2016, and the reason I'm asking for non-compliance is we never received the mailer back, so I'm asking for the penalties be applied to this one. That is my presentation for the non-compliance.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any questions of what the assessor has just stated?
Yes, Madam Chairperson. This is for the 2016 year.
2016 mailer, which uses the information from 2015.
Okay. Did the city have information about the property prior to that?
We received the mailer for sure the year before. I have in my brief. Yeah, we've received mailers from your property before that.
Can you please check what's the address that you sent to?
For the ones
No,
before,
before this one.
I don't have that with me. The one I have here is 201 286 Smith Street. I would assume it would be those unless something has changed, but.
That's all my questions for Mr. John.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Swansky?
So you say the address is, what's the unit number? 401?
No, what do you mean? This building is 286 Smith Street, and the mailer was sent to 201, Unit 201, 286 Smith Street.
And here it says unit 405, 286,
For what?
for the address. No?
Where are you looking at that?
The whole building? No?
Pardon?
The whole building, right?
This whole building is under appeal, yes.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see, okay, it's the whole building.
It's just
The mailing address.
that's what
Mailing
the mail sent
address,
to.
yeah.
Okay. And so in this case, you sent the mailer out, nothing back?
Yeah.
Nothing back at all, ever?
No,
Or-
we've received mailers in the past, and I believe this year
Yeah.
it was sent in as well, so it was just, from my understanding, just the 2015 wasn't sent in.
Wasn't sent in, or was it sent in late?
It wasn't sent in at all.
No.
We never received it.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
Mr. Sneesby?
No questions?
Just one question or observation, page 4 of your brief, there was an extension granted?
For the 2014 one, there was, yeah,
Right.
and then that one was sent in, and I believe we received it June 10th, it shows.
Okay.
That's for the year before.
And have you received a mailer since?
Yes.
Okay. And so I think this question was asked, but just for clarification, the previous mailers had been sent to, sorry, the address.
201, 286 Smith.
Right,
I believe so. I don't think there was an address change. I believe the owner operates out of that building.
okay, and, well, you can state that.
Yeah.
So the past, the most recent mailer has been sent to the same address?
I can't confirm. I don't have it with me.
Okay, thank you. If you'd like to proceed, sir?
Good morning, Madam Chairperson, good morning, board members. I think this is just a simple mistake, and unfortunately, as I wrote in my affidavit that's sworn, this building has been managed by Stevenson Management for a very long time, and then we took over in 2015 from them. All these assessments and funding and so on was done by Stevenson Management. When we took over at the end of 2015 from them, we have our office, or firm, not the building, but the office operates at unit 200, not 201, 286 Smith Street. I believe at the same time there was a group called Big Bear. It's an Aboriginal company at 201. I'm not sure who the signature is or who's the person signing for this. But Horizon Management operates at 405, 286 Smith Street. That's the person who's the company who's appealing on our behalf. Our firm operates at 200, 286 Smith Street, and it just might have been that issue. We have never received anything from the city. We have never received, and I'm affirming to this, anything from the city from 2000. Well, since we took over, until we noticed by our bank that the city is putting a notice for sale for the building, and that's when we had issued. When we spoke with Jonathan before the hearing, he told us that's a different thing that we have to talk to the city about. We're here only for the assessed value. So until then, we didn't receive anything from the city. We contacted the city. However, maybe something Jonathan can answer to in his cross examination to me, but the city of Winnipeg, I'm assuming the business tax division is in contact with the assessment. I assume that information is there. So the business tax division will have my correct address, which is unit 200, 286 Smith Street, in that building. It should have that because they'll have a copy of my lease there as the owner of the building. So I'm assuming that I don't know who this person is. I'm assuming this either was delivered to another floor or to the unit 201, but we didn't receive it. Maybe Mr. Assessor can confirm that any mail that has been sent to us after we've contacted them has been always responded to, and it's from, I think the address you have is 405.
Okay, that's where it's going now. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have that, but
That's
if
okay.
you're getting it now, then it's been changed.
It was changed when we met with the city after we had this issue.
So there was an update to the mailing address.
Yeah, and
It just
before that
wasn't
it was
changed.
Stevenson.
Okay.
Yeah, so Stevenson Management used to manage this building until I think November 2015, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what it said in my affidavit. And then when we took over, we contacted the city. Somehow it is 201 that they have instead of unit 200. That's all I have.
In 2015, it was 201. So.
Yeah, but I think that's a wrong information.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I would disagree.
Okay.
That's
No, that's fine, thank you.
I'm sorry, I had a question.
Question?
Just to confirm, so you are receiving your notices now,
yes.
and you're getting, okay. So
Yes,
it's
I
been
responded
updated
to
since,
the,
okay.
I think you have the updated
Perfect.
ones, right?
Well, I will check that for sure,
Yeah.
but that's all the questions.
Okay.
So, usually assessment sends the notice for information to the address it has on file. So when
Yes.
you took over, did you think to change the address?
We have. Stevenson Management does not operate from the building, so 201 did not exist with the city before. They operate on, I believe it's on, well, they used to be operate from a different place before, but now they moved on St. Mary's.
Okay.
So they used to have a mailing address at that time.
So
So
you
when-
changed your address?
We changed our address. Our unit is 200 at that time, up to
So the only
2000.
confusion is the unit number, but not the street address?
That is
Is that
correct,
what
yeah.
you're saying?
That's correct. We have tenants in the building. We occupy again 200 to 86 Smith Street, and then Horizon Management took over, I believe in 2017, and they operate at unit 405. So this was clearly delivered to someone at 201.
And they didn't think to send it, give it to you in the same building. What would they have done with it?
I believe they only received a notice, right? For registered mail, or did they receive the whole package?
They would have received, they would have signed for that mailer with like the package, that's what I've included, that's what comes in there.
Okay, so they must have received the whole package then.
Strange. If you get wrong mail, you usually give it to the proper person in that building.
I would do that.
Yeah,
I would do that for sure.
so that didn't happen. All right, no questions, no further questions.
Mr. Sneesby?
Yeah, you had mentioned something about an affidavit? Can we
Yes.
see that?
Oh yeah, sure, I think it's in the
Yeah, I can put it in the
materials.
It's in
Oh,
your
it's in our
package.
package?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, is
Should be
it?
in there.
Yeah.
Oh. I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
look.
page 4.
Oh, this affidavit is where it says you've spoken to the city, what would be the timing of that?
It would have been end of 2015, beginning of 2016, when I was complaining about, when we talked about payment structure for the outstanding taxes.
Okay. That's my questions.
okay. So, sir, you talked about Stevenson Management having this building, and I'm assuming the agreement was ended in November of 2015, correct?
Yes.
And then, and I'm sorry, are you part of Horizon Management?
I am on the new, I'm on the company's name as a shareholder, but yes, it's, we were running into problems in running a practice and doing this, so I hired staff, Lori and Joan and Jason, to manage the building and other buildings, and I incorporate under my name.
Okay. So up until November of 2015, these notices were sent to Stevenson, who occupied 201.
No, Stevenson never been on 201. Stevenson were
St. Mary's.
St. Mary's, now they're in St. Mary's, before that.
They're
they
like
were-
farther down or something.
Yeah, somewhere down, and they moved to St. Mary's. So when I called in 2015 or 16, end of 16, I updated the address. I don't know why they took it as 200 to 201 rather than 200. So I think that's the issue.
Okay, got it. But Mr. Splaychick, I'm just gonna readdress to you.
Okay.
You were receiving notices even though you had 201?
In, all I
Or you
have for
can.
information is that in the year before,
Was 201?
I don't have a list of where that was sent. I don't know if there was change. I have no history of the address here, but in 15 it was sent somewhere, probably 201 unless there's a change in between. We received a response after an extension was asked for. Then the year later, we did not receive a response, is what I have.
So I don't,
Okay.
One number mistake.
may I make a small comment?
Yes.
I mean, I'm trying to help, was it page 12, Jonathan, I can't remember.
Page, we were just talking about, page 12,
Right.
yeah, that's the mailer stuff.
Okay, so,
Page 12 is the envelope we sent.
so I noticed that in 2015, when you sent it, and you got responsive to us before November 2015, I can't find your page.
Sorry, if you look at page 4, it's just showing our request for information history. So at the top,
Okay,
the question is in 2014 information, which was sent in 2015,
okay.
we received this response on June 10th. So it was late, you requested an extension, we received that one.
Okay.
But 2015, April 8th, right, this is the one we're talking about today, the income it was sent, this is the one I'm showing.
You mean 2016?
It was sent to 201, but we never received, but I don't have the 15 one attached, that was sent back, because
All right, so that one, just for my clarification, that one was sent in April to, sometime in June 2015?
yes,
Okay, so that's at the time when Stevenson was still managing.
yeah.
Okay,
So at some point, I don't know, we don't have it here, which is too bad, but
okay.
Yeah.
it was sent in 2015, received, I don't know if the address changed, and then it was put 201 instead of 200, like you're saying, I don't know, I'm just listening to what you're saying.
Thank you, thank you.
Just before we go and make our decisions, Patrick, I just want to ask you one more question in regards, you've got an extension here in 2015. Do you know if there were previous extensions requested?
No, I
You don't
don't,
have that.
I believe we received, there was no more, we received mailers before that, I didn't have a reason to attach other old mailers that we didn't receive, so I don't know if they were granted extensions for the 30 days, but
Okay.
this one sent June 10th is considered compliant, it was before the extension.
Right, okay. So 2015 is our only,
15's the only one I have, no mailer signed for, where
Okay.
where somebody received it, but it might, like he's saying, it's sort of.
right, okay. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll just take a moment.
Do we stand, can you stand there?
You'll stay here. I have the, it's on my phone.
Yeah. Probably something from my floor.
going to deny the non-COLA.
Perfect. Let's go on with the realty now.
Yep.
Perfect. We're looking at roll number 120933181100. This is 286 Smith Street, between Portage and Graham Avenue. We're looking at the roll year 2019 for a total assessed value of $1,921,000. This is a 6-story office building built in 1962. We have an effective year of 1962 as well, so we have no upgrades or anything counting to lower the effective age. We have a gross floor area of 40,108 square feet and a leasable area of 30,106 square feet. If you turn to my page 2. I've included pictures of the building on page 2, so the aerial photograph, you can see where it lays against Portage and Graham there, just sharing a side of the back lane. And then at the bottom of the page, I have an aerial view.
And which building is that on the aerial?
So you can see it right, I'll just point to it right here. It's this one on the right, with the kind of that like smaller story, 6th story on the top there.
Okay.
It's right beside the back lane. Page 3, I just put a street view, see the front of the building. And page 4, as we went over, we have the request for information sent, and then we have one sale history, March 24th, 2009. There's a $1.2 million sale on the building, and then there's no, I don't have any subject property leases on page 4, and that showed up automatically. Page 5, this is where the income and value of this property is determined. So as you can see, we have multiple different premises of different size throughout the building, and I'll just say that's 30,106 square feet, and it's a blended rate of $8.93 a square foot. $8.93 a square foot we have for a
Thank you.
blended rate. This works out to a potential rent of $268,919 after you take into I would just like to point out our vacancy loss. So our vacancy loss for these OFCs are usually around 8 to 12% depending on the year for the model, but we have this building at 20% to try and better represent the high vacancy issues this building has had over the years. So I'd just like to point that out. Expenses are our standard 7% expenses. We're using 850 shortfall, which is standard for OFCs, and we're using an overall cap rate of 7.75%. This is how we reach that $1.921 million value for this building. And page 6. I've put together as many similar OFC rents downtown that I could find, trying to stay in the subject area, trying to stay in that average year built around 1962 as well. I have a couple on Donald, OFC built in 1958. I'll just point out our subject building was built in 1962. This is a 3-story OFC with recent leases in 13 and 15. About 4,000 square feet lease, 5,000 square feet for $9 and $11, and that's main floor $9.100, second floor is $11, just the way it is. 290 Gary OFC built in 1960. We have 14,000 square feet at $9.10. We have 3 tenants in 570 Portage Avenue on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors. This building is built in 1963, so very similar. It's a 4-story building with recent leases signed near the reference date of April 1st, 2016 for $11 to $12 a square foot. 1200 Portage, OFC built in 1972, 3-story OFC. We have some leases with range in size from 4,700 square feet up to 13,000 square feet, and they're all around that $8 to $9 mark. And then I've included a bunch of 305 net leases at 305 Broadway, ranging throughout the building. It's a 10-story building, so much taller, built in 1972. We have ranges leasing in age, but they're all around that $10.75 to $13 a square foot. And that is a more recent building, 1972. It attributes to the higher rents received. But our subject property, as I stated before, is at a blended rate of $8.93. I've included pictures of the comparables on page 7 and page 8. Take a look. Page 9 is the income approach again, just the value summary. And page 10 is our capitalization rate sheet. This property OFC is at 7.75%. There isn't a OFC class that we or Colliers or CBRE has like range for OFCs. It's kind of a departmental standard for a building, that OFC. But you can, you would say it's lower quality than an OFB, which ranges between 6.75 and we're at 6.75 for the OFBs, and then Colliers has 6.25 to 7.25 for OFBs, and CBRE is at 6.5 to 7. So we're at that 7.75, which is on the higher end. Again, just trying to represent that, not exactly the quality of an OFB or anything like that, but we are at that 7.75%. That's all I have on the cap rate. And I didn't have a mailer to attach, but for this income year, but that is my presentation for this property.
Thank you. Did you have any questions of the assessor?
Madam Chairperson, I probably should have maybe mentioned this before we started the second part of the hearing. But when we filed our property appeal for the assessed value on June 22nd, 2018, we were under the impression we're filing it for the 2018 year. When we spoke with Jonathan, he said you guys missed it because it's 23 days, I think, after it's sent. They sent you something, I think Jonathan was saying to us, by mail, and then you have 23 days to appeal that amount. So I was waiting first to see if Jonathan's motion or request to have the non-compliance granted or not. We did not receive the mail, and we haven't received the mail until we contacted the city and started the process with them. So I don't know if, because of that, if we are able to, when we were talking before this started, if we're able to have this assessment for the 2018. No, it's not.
The 18's over, so the whole cycle of 18 is over. It's done.
Even though.
That's why we're doing 19. Yeah, even though
Okay.
you didn't, if
Okay.
you didn't receive mail, whatever, it's the 19.
Okay.
But,
all right. Okay, I just,
yeah.
again, very new to this.
No problem. I'm
Okay,
happy to
thank you.
explain.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start by some questions for you, please.
Perfect.
Thank you. Jonathan, you had, before 2016,
Yep.
you had an actual rent value for the premises in 286 Smith Street. You would have had this.
We received mailers before, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this would have indicated what's the lease,
Well,
what's the
yeah.
rent that's collected, what's the
Exactly.
lease per unit,
Yeah.
and so on, okay. On page 5 of your documents, you have indicated that there are premises with different IDs.
Yes.
I don't know what these IDs for, are they representing the units? in the
Yeah,
building?
it's an internal representation of a unit of a unit. It's the
Okay.
different square footages of, like, sizes of the units within your building.
Okay. But these are not actually based on the actual units that exist there, because when you received this report, you would have known that we only
Yeah.
have few tenants.
Yeah, so when it was, this is the potential, this is all the leasable square feet within your building. Whether or not they're filled by tenants or not,
Okay.
this is the potential income for your building, so whether they're vacant or filled. But this is how we have it sorted out, and it can always be updated for sizes of square footages.
Can you, I really don't know what this is, so can you please help me understand, for example, why is the first one rate per square foot is different than the second one is different, and so on and so on?
So in a building like this, an OFC, it's due to economies of scale. So if an average rent for a 1,500 square foot unit is $9, most often as the unit size gets smaller, the rent goes a little higher, and as the unit gets bigger, the rent often drops down. So our
Okay.
model will take a bigger unit and
Okay.
give it less rent than a comparable sized unit that's smaller, due
Okay.
to economies of scale. And then there's also the fact that a first floor unit is gonna receive more rent than a second floor unit, and most often as you go up, the rent drops a bit. So these numbers represent that, but they're all
Okay.
generated by our model on.
So this would be presumed numbers, not the actual numbers we
No,
sent
these
you?
are all presumed average rent for a building and other similar types of building like yours in that area.
So they are different than the numbers that were sent by Stevenson in 2014, for example?
Yeah, like they're often, we will often have a difference of some sort between what an actual reported rent is, because we don't just go to what's reported in the building, we use the average of all the buildings that are similar.
Okay.
So that's why there's the difference.
That's how you came to that?
Yeah.
Okay. On the same page, you indicated that the leasable area is 30,106.
Yes, that's what we have in our system.
Okay, how do you have that number? Because that's not, well, you have this sheet, so that's not what's on the sheet. How do you have 30,000?
Yeah, like we will update a building, there'll be a review. If it's wrong, we will change it. That's what was in our system, and that's what's been carried forward. So if it's different, we always do a review, but I can't say exactly why it's 30,106 here, and if you have a different number,
Okay.
why it's not that, but we're happy to look at it.
Okay, and you, these numbers that you mentioned to me, the 852 per square foot and so on, these
Yeah.
are based on market value?
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with the 2015 market report?
Yes.
Okay. Can I bring your attention to tab 7 of my,
They don't have the book, 'cause remember, she told me just to
Oh.
photocopy the pages, because
okay, so do you have this page from the book?
I don't think so, you didn't
I didn't add
include
that,
it? No.
because she told me just to make copies and bring it today, because she wasn't gonna, I couldn't make the whole book, that's why.
I'm sorry. Then I have to address one point first. Then Madam Chairperson and the board, can you please direct me, how do I introduce this to the board at this stage?
We'll have to keep it as evidence.
May I, please, then, or, okay,
Copies, perfect.
I
Perfect.
think so. This is for John. And there's, oh, sorry, here's the copies, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jonathan, I'm sorry. Honorable Michael. May I, Jonathan, may I just show you that this is the page you have, the same one I have in
Yeah,
the book?
of course, no problem. No, I believe you, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And this information comes from where?
This is from the, because it's relevant to the year in question, so 2015 December market report. We paid like $500 for it to see the market.
Who puts that report out?
Oh, it's about the values of the properties in Winnipeg.
No, but what company does that?
Oh, the
Johnson report.
Johnson report.
Oh, okay, yeah. All you have to say is Johnson report, I'm familiar, okay.
Thank you. So, in the report, Jonathan, sorry, on page 64 or 4 out of 10 that one you have, you'll see that 286 Smith Street is almost like highlighted there.
Yep.
And you'll see the rentable space is 27,227.
Absolutely.
And the 20% on the same page, Jonathan, on number 5, the 20% is based also on an estimate that the city.
Yeah, that's an override to represent, because the average vacancy in an OFC is say 10 to 14%, or I'm just trying to remember, I don't know for sure, but we usually do it around there, that's what our model is usually. We upped it to 25%, to 20% to better represent that chronic, or the higher level of vacancy your building seems to have over the years from the little I've seen.
Can you help us to tell us what, based on the last report you had before the 2016, what was the vacancy rate that we had indicated?
You probably know better than me, I don't want to say it wrong, but you can.
Okay, but it's not the, well, this is not based on the vacancy rate we gave you guys.
No, it's, the 20% is to represent the higher vacancy, it's not your actual vacancy.
Okay.
The highest we ever give for chronic vacancy, like a building that's vacant for, is 25%. So that 20 is to represent that you have some tenants, but you're struggling with vacancy.
Can you, I honestly don't know what is this shortfall means?
The shortfall is the cost to run space that is vacant. So
Okay.
we're saying on average, $8.50 per square foot of your building is what it would cost to, if it was vacant, to carry that space.
I see.
So that's what shortfall is. So it gives you 51,000 off of your potential.
Okay, thank you. And those numbers, the 852, the 991, they are based on net rent, not gross,
Yeah, they are all just based on our expenses, yeah, they're based on expenses.
not including the common area and,
No.
okay, perfect. Okay, on the same page report, Jonathan, the one I gave you.
Yep.
You'll see that there are actually buildings very close to our building, like for example, to 80 Smith Street next door.
Yep.
Okay. And you'll see the rent reported there, the net rent reported there as well.
Yep.
The one above it on Princess, which is close to us, 48 Princess.
Yep.
And then it report, and the net rent reported at 4.46.
That's the 4 point for the CAM?
No, that's for the, hold on, I'm just, sorry, it's the net rate of 1025, sorry.
Yeah, 1025 net rent, yeah.
That's okay. And it goes on and on like, as such, right?
Yep.
Okay. So in your calculation of the value, you use the income approach,
Yes.
and in doing so, I know this is what it is, but I just want to confirm, because I am really learning.
Yeah.
If you did 268.19 minus 53,784.
Yep.
And then minus 15,059, and then another minus 51,180, to come to 148,896.
Yeah.
And then we multiplied that by 7.75.
Yeah, you divide, yeah, to get the capitalized value divided by
Oh,
7.75%, and then that
Okay.
gives you the 1.9.
okay. So those are my questions, and to Jonathan, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Mr. Swansky.
Yes. We have quite a few comparables
Yes.
that you've mentioned. Of all of those, which two or three are, in your mind, the closest to what we're dealing with here? Is it possible to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, subjectively, I can tell you that, or again, from what I'm looking at and seeing the quality of the buildings and, you know, for the rents that were being paid, but again, you have an $895 rent at 1200 Portage Avenue for the second floor for 13,000 square feet. That's at $895. We're coming in at $893. It's pretty comparable in rent. For the building ages, again, that's a 72. We're working with a 62, so 570 Portage, built in 1962. They're receiving, you know, $12 and $11. So I don't know. I would say in this case they're pretty similar, 3, 4, 3 stories. You know, my first, I would say comparables 1 to 9 are the most comparable. My 207 Donald, 290 Gary, 570 Portage, 1200 Portage. I'd be able to put weight on all of those for looking for OFC rents in downtown.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Chair.
Thanks. I don't know, the page one, the gross floor area is 40,000 square feet, leasable is 30. That's like 25% of area that's not leasable.
Yep.
Is that disproportionately high?
OFCs have a lot of hallways when they have smaller units. They have a lot of, you know, it's a lot of stairwell to cover, a lot of common area. So I don't know if that's I don't have the other ones, but again, I don't know what the actual leasable square footage is, but apparently we're off on that 30,106. I'd be interested to see what we are, but yeah.
I noticed on the Johnson report, they show even lower.
Yeah,
rentable
27,
area.
227.
Yeah,
So I don't know how
that's,
the differences are obtained, but
seems high, you know,
Yeah.
non-rentable.
yeah, a lot of common space would be my guess.
Oh, there's something else about that that found unusual, but, yeah. Anyway, it'll come to me later.
Okay.
That's it, my only question.
Mr. Spacek, did you have a chance to inspect this property?
I've not inspected this property.
Have you ever inspected this
I've
property?
never been to it, no.
Can you tell me the last time when it was inspected?
I believe somebody recently went, what, a couple weeks ago?
If you want me to, I can answer.
Sure.
2 weeks ago, we had someone from the city of Winnipeg who came floor by floor on the property, and they asked me to provide them with leases for all the occupied places, which we did.
I have the name, but it's on my phone.
Okay. And I'm assuming this was a city assessor.
I'm assuming it was for business assessment, so it's
Okay.
getting a review right now.
Okay. Can you just tell me, Mr. Spacek, on your rent comparables on page 6 of your brief,
Yep.
have you been in any of them?
Yeah, I've been in 207, I've been in 570 Portage, I've been in 305 Broadway over the years for different assessment related things.
Okay,
But I didn't
But-
inspect them for this purpose of using them as comparables.
okay. But you, I think, just previously stated that you think 1200 Portage is the closest?
I'm just going off of for these, trying to.
Just off the
explain-
rental?
Pardon?
Sorry, were you just going off the rental number?
Yeah, I was just going off the rental rate,
Okay.
similar rent,
Yeah, but you haven't been in 1200 Portage?
1,200, no.
Okay. Can you, do you know which, like, can you describe where that is on Portage, or what the building is, or what the, no?
Like, other than the picture, no, like
No.
what you can see,
Okay.
no.
That's all my questions, thank you.
Can I go back to my
Yes.
question that I,
Sure.
yeah, on your work up, yeah. The vacancy, loss is 20%.
Yeah.
Is that sort of a maximum the city uses?
The highest I've seen used is 25 to represent chronic vacancy.
Okay,
Uh,
because I knew there was and after that, it's considered the building should go dark. Is
Yeah,
that-
the highest
I
we
can
can
use that and that's the
assess that is
expression.
25, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question, thanks.
You'd like to give us your presentation?
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Jonathan.
Well,
And I'm chairperson, honorable members. I'm here to talk about the building, and if I may please, I want to describe to you the building. You might have seen it drive by past Smith. If you are familiar with the Radisson building on Portage and Smith, it is the building right behind the Radisson building. This building we had a very difficult time to find tenants in this building. We had two different real estate agents listed, Mr. Wayne Sato, not from Stevenson, from the other division, Cushman Wakefield, and we had Mr. George Abraham from Century 21 trying to list this building for over 4 years. And prior to that, we had the normal boards outside and so on to try as well as to find some tenants for it. The difficulties that we had with this building is it is across or was across from St. Regis Hotel, which was very problematic area for that time. St. Regis closed in, I think, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, on the hope that we have this Sky City project, which did not crystallize. So we continuously had really difficult time to try and rent that building, despite so many efforts and changing the roof. We changed the roof to try to do that and so on. Unfortunately, the vacancy that we had was in excess of 25%. It was almost 32%, 31.6% that we had vacancy. Recently, we had a tenant who joined us in July of 2018, which reduced the vacancy to just over 26%. Anyways, this is the building itself and the issues we had with it. My submission, other than that, is based on a few things. The first one, in the report that we have sent to the city, and by Stevenson Management, which I would have signed, I think, or my partner at that time, would have indicated that the total rentable space of the building would have been 27,490 square feet. That would have been what is stated there, because that's actually what we have to rent. May I answer your question that maybe you've asked for Jonathan indirectly? The reason why there's 40,000 square feet, or what's close to it, and then only 27,000 and almost and a half rentable space. The building is old, like When you go in, there is a really big entrance for it. There is a foyer, also very big, unusable space. The basement of the building is a short ceiling. The city was there recently. It's not rentable. Then we have 2 staircases all throughout the building. We have 2 elevators as well in the building. And then we have on the 5th floor, we have a full, 6th floor. On the 6th floor, we have a full 6th floor that is it's closed and everything, but it actually has the elevator shaft machine. It has the air circulator machine. It has the furnace, pumps, and so on those. And those are part of the building. So imagine we have a full floor that's like that. The first floor is only half a floor. Behind it is the parking lot. So when you add the actual rentable space, it comes to almost 27,400 and some, 490. So that's the first, I think, issue I had, is that the rentable space is different than actual assessed space. So there is about close to 2,500 square feet of assessed rentable space that doesn't exist actually in the building. The city had assisted at 30,106. I don't know where the figure came from, but our report prior to this and the market value, which is also, they're based on actual sizes and so on, it's at 27,490. So that's the actual space of the building. I already addressed the problem with the vacancy. They currently, even after the new tenant in July joined us, it's at just over 26% of that. So I would ask to be given the highest percentage allowed by the city. If 26, that's great. 25 is wonderful. But that's the reality. And unfortunately, prior to that, we were suffering from even higher vacancy rate before that. Now, as to the actual rent per square foot, I will only spend 2 minutes to talk about actual rent because that's not what the city uses. But the actual rent in this building is $14 gross. We take out from that 8.55 square feet. If you look at dollars, sorry. If you look at, this is the downtown C-class buildings, and this is a breakdown, more of a breakdown than the report itself. And if you look at this page, which I put the name Winsat on top of, just to kind of identify it more, you'll see that they are mentioning 286 Smith Street in this building. Again, the same value as in the report. And then when we look at the actual net rent, it's 5.46. It's $5.46. The taxes is 2.05 and the CAM area is 6.49, bringing the taxes and the CAM to a total of 8.54. So the city would be using in their comparison, if this market comparison, they would be using the net rent, which is $5.46. That's what is that's what we are collecting actually from our tenants. So that $5.46 per square foot that we are collecting, if we actually multiply it by the same formula, I'm going to use the same formula as Jonathan had on page 5, it will bring our total gross to $150,095.40. So not 268.19, but that's the actual that's what we're collecting, $150,095.40. We subtract from that, even if I subtract from that 20%, not 26%, even 20%, which is $30,019.08. That leaves us with an effective gross income of $120,076.32. And if we apply the expenses, including the management of 7%, to the $120,076.32, it works out to be $8,405.34. And based on the shortfall, what Jonathan has explained to me, if I were to multiply $8.50 on the 20% only vacancy, not 26% that we have, it will be $46,733. That leaves me with net operating income of $64,937.98. If I'm going to pay the city, $54,000 for my property taxes, how am I going to run the building? How am I going to pay for my waters? which is included in the rent, the hydro is included in the rent, the heating is included in the rent. How am I gonna pay for maintenance and garbage removal and so on? It's not reasonable. And that's actually based on actual. So, when I look at the comparison of these buildings to my building, my argument is simple. The ones on Portage Avenue, which is 1200 Portage Avenue, this is on a major street on Portage Avenue. This is on a really busy street, very well exposed and very high traffic. The building is much easier to rent and you can ask for more money on there. I'm on Smith, behind the Radisson. Parking is very limited and unfortunately I have a very strong challenge with my neighbor across from me. Even as we speak now, I don't have to mention to you, but you probably have seen the news that there's been an attack on very close to my neighborhood. It's a tough area. We bring in a caretaker who is a security who comes in and makes sure the doors are closed at night. We had many people who would try to sneak in and sleep in the basement. Many people go in the back parking lot in the back and use it as a washroom. It's a tough area. We've called the neighborhood watch almost every week to try and help us. But we were very hopeful that the Sky City would come up, but that didn't happen. But we're still hopeful that things will change in that area. So it cannot be compared to 1200 Portage. It cannot be compared. And it cannot be compared also on the buildings on Broadway. Broadway is a clean, beautiful street, double lanes. There's anything that goes in the city goes on Portage. It's almost like a touristic place. We have the food carts there, and it's a nice place. Everybody want to be in Portage, close to the court. If they're lawyers, close to the Manitoba Clinic. If they're in the medical field, it's easier to rent. So I cannot say that this is what it should be at. Yes, we are renting it at $546 because that's really that's all we can get. And the lease, the city has the lease from our new tenant in July 2018, and it will reflect exactly what I'm saying. So that's what we can get. We cannot get any more, and I'm lucky to have that because I need to pay my property taxes, and which I need to talk to the city about and others as well. So it's my I don't know if it's a submission, but it's my opinion that the rent there should not be even $8, which is the 1200 Portage. It should not even be $8. It should be what is close to what we actually are paying now. I know it's difficult. I said he came in. I invite Jonathan to come and see for himself. It is what it is, unfortunately, in that area. So I would ask the city, please, and the board to consider having that rent to close to what is actually we're paying. If you want to do it 6 even, I'm okay with that. I don't want to. I'm not trying to ask for less even. That it is what it is. It's fine with me. So the point that was raised about, and I might have covered it already. And please stop me if I'm talking too much. No, I don't want to be wasting.
You're giving us information, sir.
Okay, there might be more than I'm using as a length of time,
Okay.
if I am. Okay. I actually, to be honest with you, I don't know how the city calculates the cap rate, so I don't know how to argue 7.75 is reasonable or not, but I'm going to accept the city. They've done this with other buildings, so I'm accept that that's what it is. I don't have an issue with the city per se. I have an issue with this area being not accurate, and the net rent being based on buildings that is not comparable to ours, unfortunately, because of what's happening. So that's all that really I have. I don't want to waste your time, really, that's all.
That's fine, and I'm sure we'll be able to glean more information by asking questions.
Thank
That's
you.
fine. Mr. Spacek.
I have no questions.
Mr. Sawatsky.
Well, I was listening carefully to your analysis of your actuals, and then what came up to my mind, though, you were using 546 as your close to actual rent.
Yes.
But then when you went to your shortfall, you actually used 850, which is what the city's using.
No, 46,733. I used the 46,753, so I might be wrong. What I did is and please correct me, what I did is I did 20, well, I used 20%, Jonathan, not 25.
Yeah.
So I did 20% times 27,490, so that came to a number, and that number I multiplied it by 850.
I see. Would you have used a different square foot on the shortfall than 850?
I wish I know how the city comes up to that.
But you're just using their.
I will use 20 if I'm able to, but I don't know. So I'll use the city. I'll accept what the city gives us, because ideally, well, to be fair, 850. If you compare 850 to this page here, I have to be fair to everybody. This page here shows that which is true, the tax plus the CAM
Yeah.
comes to $8.54. So the city is very accurate, very close to that. The city is using $8.50. So that's what's costing us to run the empty spaces. I assume what Jonathan explained to me is that exactly the 850. So there's I guess 0.4 cents difference. 850 I'll accept. It's not a problem. It doesn't have to be 8.54. That's what's actually costing us to run the building, and that's based on this report as well.
On your sheet here, this one,
Yes.
there's a number put in there in pencil, 854.
Yes.
Did you put that there? What was the reason for?
It's just, actually, I did it while I was listening to the other gentleman. Seriously, that's what happened. I just added the tax, which is $2.05, plus the 6.49, which is the CAM. And that's the $8.54. So that's deducted from the actual rent that we're paying. Which
That's what that relates to?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I have no further questions, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Sneesby.
I've written down some numbers, trying to follow, and your gross rent was 150,540, is that correct?
150,095.4.
And your effective gross was
And that's not-
120?
If I may just add, that's not the actual rent collected. That's I'm just using the city, I'm just using the same calculation as the city. So what they did is they multiplied the proposed rent by the square footage, and then they added 268. But in reality, all I did simply is I used 5.46 times 27,490 square feet to come up to 150,095.
150,000?
150.
Yeah.
095.40 cents.
Okay. And you came up with a effective gross income of 120,000?
Yeah, so what I did is, again, I used only 20%, not the actual number. I would really appreciate if they can be closer to the 25%, but even at using 20%, 20% vacancy comes to 30,019.8 cents.
Okay.
And if you subtract 150,095.4 minus 30,019.8, it works out to be 120,076.32. And that would be the effective gross income line that Jonathan had provided. That would be our number compared to his. And then the number underneath the expenses, I used 7% multiplied by 120,076.32, and I came up to 8,405.34. And the shortfall, 20% of 27,490 square feet is actually 5,498 square feet. So 20% vacancy of the building would amount to 5,498 square feet. If I multiply that number by 850, it works out to 46,753. I'm not, is this?
And your net income would therefore be how much?
$64,937.98.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I just have one question, sir.
Yes.
In regards to, you had mentioned the issue with the Regis Hotel.
Yes.
What's happening with the Regis?
Well,
It's not, I'm assuming it's not operational anymore?
It's
You
closed now.
indicated that?
Yeah.
Okay.
so
It's vacant?
it's closed, it's vacant, but it's not really vacant. It's, there's break-ins into it, there's people staying there, there's lots of illegal activities without elaborating, unless you want me to.
Yep. No, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
I understand. Yep. Okay.
Do you want me to say what the numbers I think should be, or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, based on the calculations, and this is where I am gonna make a leap of faith, John, because I don't know how you came to the 191.
You just divide it by the cap rate, your NOI.
Okay, so you divide.
So what's your NOI right now?
The 64,937.98.
987?
64,937.98.
Yeah.
937.98.
987?
64,937.98.
938.
I mean, I'm putting 98 cents.
Divided by 0.0775, right? So 775. You're asking for 838,000.
So, okay, so I want to be also fair. Okay, I bought this building in 2009 for 1.2 million.
Yep.
So I cannot ask for 838,000. It's not right. I would be happy anywhere between 1.2 to 1.3. I'd be very happy. That would be realistic for me, and it's actually reflective. Even though it's not reflective of the market value, but I'll be extremely happy with 1.2 to 1.3. I cannot ask for less than what I paid for the building, even though it's going through hard times. Like when we bought the building, there were tenants in there. It was a First Nation group, but they occupied 3 floors. When they left, all 3 floors left at the same time. And they are government funded, it was easy for them to be there. When they left, I was left with an empty building, except for where I'm at, and then I opened a pharmacy with my wife's a pharmacist on the main floor. I think it was 5 years after we did that to try and generate more income to pay for the building. But I don't know how can anybody ask to be assessed for something less than what they paid for. I would not ask for that.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming today. This one?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just let me know if you need it.
And I'm gonna have you read out 757 Osborne.
Okay.
You can just-
757 Osborne, roll number 12002378000. 2019 roll year, $329,000, and we ask to confirm the assessed value.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's here.
There it is. But, I don't know, I think you need to hear
Did you have any communication at all?
No, I have not spoke with this owner.
Okay.
I was waiting to see if there'd be a brief with something to talk about or look at, but I received nothing.
Well, because this is a non-co-op, do you just want us to give you information on that?
Absolutely. If you could please turn to page 13 of my brief. I've included the tracking for the envelope sent with the mailer June 3rd, 2016, which has the 2015 income year, as we've gone over before, 630 CA. It was signed by the owner, or it was sent to the owner, Kamini Enterprises Limited, 757 Osborne. And on that first page, it shows the signature, that page 13, it shows the signature CJANS that received it, and we never received a response for this one. And that is my case for non-compliance. And also, you know what, sorry, just to say, that was for the 15-year, and then I've also included, if you go through the mailer, sorry, to page 23, for the 14 signed as well, never received it back. So it's been, I included 2 years back to back of not received it. That's my evidence, thank you.
Thank you very much. And that